Welcome to another episode of Trade Australia. I'm your host, Lawrence Christoffelsz. Trade Australia is proudly brought to you by the Australian Trade and Logistics Corporation. On today's show, we're kicking off with all the way from India, Gitesh Agarwal, who's the Queensland Trade Investment Commissioner for India, and he's part of Trade Investment Queensland, obviously. Hi, Gitesh, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Good to be on the show, mate.
Thanks. Gitesh, look, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show. Please take this opportunity to tell us about the TRQ initiatives offered to companies who want to do business with India.
Well, thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, Import-Export TV, to bring me to share what TRQ is doing to support the exporters in Queensland accessing the markets for India. So we are the global business agency of the government of Queensland, and we assist Queensland businesses across the 12 markets that we are present in. We keep a close connect with the market for opportunities, and across these industries of Queensland's strengths, we provide support in various ways to the companies, institutions, both virtually and in market. In simple manner, we connect Queensland with the world and the world with Queensland, and we are trying to create business opportunities that create jobs and prosperity. Primarily, mate, we're delivering on our core objectives. We're positioning Queensland for globally for success. We're trying to grow diversified exports in this current realignment of supply chains. We are attracting job-creating international investment. We are trying to develop talent to grow Queensland. We are, of course, promoting regional success through global linkages. And bottom line, mate, we are trying to deliver an exceptional service from a high-performance organization.
Yeah, wonderful. Sorry, go on, please.
In the recent past, we have pivoted, and given the COVID impact and distancing of Australia, we kept the narrative of our state and its companies connect in the markets. We have continued to provide support ranging from freight support to market development grants. In fact, companies looking at India would benefit from a recently announced market diversification grant program, which is designed to provide established exporters in Queensland with support in exploring new markets or expanded market opportunities to diversify their exports with the support of TRQ's international network of commissioners and business development managers. There'll be an individualized market development grant game plan, which will specify the Queensland exporter specific objectives and propose expenditure items, milestones, and outcomes.
Great. Yeah, there's some great initiatives there. And as you say, everything's been disrupted with COVID recently. So that support for companies in Queensland to look for new markets and really lean on your expertise and the other commissioners around the world is a great initiative, and congratulations on all that great work. Gitesh, the Australian government's economic strategy sets out a really ambitious plan to transform the partnership between Australia and India by 2035. What are your thoughts on the strategy? Do you think it's achievable?
From my perspective, India's economic strategy is a very definitive document, and Chancellor Peter Verghese, who's a Chancellor for University of Queensland, he's definitely presented both a bird's eye view as well as a large set of granular tactical engagement options. Australia, the cohesive country, has to pursue these milestones for long-term gain in the bilateral relationship. In a large country like India, it actually necessitates that the efforts must be in synergy. Energies of federal, state, regional councils, they all have to be brought together. And this is very important for the optimization of resources and focus. The strategy signifies 10 sectors and 10 states, and Queensland's own India Strategy 2018-23 has the top 4 sectors in focus in alignment with that India economic strategy. So they range from mining and mets, education and training, agri and food, as well as health. India is a vast market, and what I always say is it demands definitely a change of perspective, a positive engagement, and most importantly, patience. The core of the matter is that fragmented efforts will need to come together to create a brand Australia resonance beyond cricket, kangaroos, tourism, and education. Australia has much to offer to India, from energy and food security to cutting-edge innovation. And India offers Australia perhaps the largest localized to maximize opportunity through its young, aspiration, and ambitious market. It's a tough call, as most geographies in the world have also bet on India and are wooing it with investments, expansion of their global R&D centers of excellence, amplifying their local participation, for example, Walmart, Amazon, and of course, with a larger basket of well-known global brands. From my perspective, the only way to do it is to do it together as one country.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, Gitesh. As you say, I think everyone wants the same outcomes, whether it's federal, state-based, and it is really an all-hands-on approach to show the Indian business community and the government, for that matter, that doing business with Australia overall is a benefit to them, and doing business with Queensland has got some really unique sectors, as you mentioned before, with Mets and others as well. So some of the things, Gitesh, that so many exporters talk to us about is that they've heard about India for so much, but there's so many benefits of such a diverse market. It's almost so daunting. How do you describe some of these benefits for India, and how do they compare to other markets that people are considering?
Well, thank you, Lawrence. What India is of course available in many documents in terms of its size, youth, etc. But if you look at the immediate recent past, during this COVID and the recovery through COVID, India's economy has actually bounced back to surprise the entire world. It would remain one of the fastest and the largest economies in the world, and of course, youngest population. And youngest population is absolutely translating into consumption and expansion. More important is Indian government's continued intent to align India to global best practices. So if you look at just three words, that's consumption and collaboration and expansion, India is so much beneficial for Australia to be working with India. If I may just share a few thoughts that, of course, India's large middle class of 400 million people is the mainstay of the consumption expenditure. But even if we were to look at 10% of that, 40 million people, it's still bigger than Australia as a market. Moreover, if you look at the strategic location, you have access to Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Myanmar. So you get a larger market by being in India. Of course, India is being looked at as a diversification piece, as several companies are trying to realign their supply chains to mitigate the risks arising out of the geopolitical disturbances. Very importantly, people in Australia and the companies in Australia would probably be happy to know that in the recent past, India's ease of doing business standing in the world has jumped almost 79 spots, from 15 to 63. Look at the digital revolution. It's affecting all the sectors of economy, from banking, finance, taxation, e-commerce, agriculture, rural development, and of course, government. The public finances are well managed. There's a robust and resilient financial system. In fact, it's emerging as a leading player in the global world in innovative payment systems. More importantly, is a diversified industrial infrastructure, logistical base, and of course, innovations and startup hub. In fact, where I'm placed in Bangalore, it's known as the second largest hub in the world for startups. And any country which has a strong forex reserve also has so much more say in what it wants to buy and sell. So India's got about $575 billion reserves as of November. And of course, regardless of some of the geopolitical tensions, it's got a strong political stability and very cordial international relations. In fact, extremely cordial with Australia. So I would say there's so many benefits of being working in India, with India, and for the world around India.
Yeah, there's so much to take on. I think that, as you say, it is jumping up dramatically in the ease of doing business scale, and it's really it's always been a major presence, obviously, on all global markets, but the complexities of how to do business with India is getting easier and better, and obviously with experts such as yourself on the ground there to really help navigate that market is really valuable as well. Gitesh, I mean, as I just mentioned, so many companies, especially Australian companies, have been daunted with India. What are some of the myths when it's trying to do business with India? You touched on the cricket, they love sport. There are some great legal synergies, and we're all both Commonwealth countries, so there's a lot of synergies to leverage, but there's also some myths about the do's and don'ts. What advice would you give there?
Thank you, Lawrence. I was trying to put some answers to this question, and I found a very interesting dichotomy. I think the biggest myth sometimes is it's an easy market. And the second biggest myth is it's a tough market. So the people do think it's easy market, it's waiting for an imported product and one size fits it all. But parallelly, it's a tough market, it's not developed enough or it's technically inferior. So those are the two biggest myths. And I would keep going back, change the lens, change the perspective with which you see India. Don't look at the large, massive market size that numbers tell you. Look at what your product and your supply chain can cater to. If you can customize the product to the local needs and wants, then definitely people would love to experience and explore something Australian because they have this mutual respect for Australia. And if you have that patience and perseverance, India is a fantastic market to be in. Just look at the success of Australian as well as European and American firms in India, apart from the Asian firms that are really rebuilding larger than home bases in India.
Yeah, it's great advice. And I think, Gitesh, one of the things I wanted to ask as a follow-up question to that is, they've got a whole range of ways of, if you like, dissecting the Indian market. And you said yourself, you're in Bangalore, that's a startup capital. There are other major cities like Delhi, Mumbai, all these other areas of India which may be stronger suited to different industry sectors and different products or service sectors. So that sort of leads into my next question, which is around the comprehensive strategic partnership. And what are the type of industries that you think are a really good fit for Australian companies to take note of, and what's the growth between the two markets? Which of the sectors you think are there right now and possibly emerging in the future, Gitesh?
Well, thank you, Lawrence. Interestingly, both Prime Ministers jointly participated in India-Australia's Leaders Virtual Summit in June 2020, and they, of course, committed to elevating the bilateral strategic partnership. It's a mutual understanding of trust and common interests. And I always say that look at Australia's strengths in industries and look at India's needs in certain sectors. So whether it's education, agriculture, energy, resources, tourism, healthcare, science and innovation, of course, sport and infrastructure. So while the India economic strategy already clearly describes the 10 sectors, and our own Queensland strategy granularizes it to 4 sectors, I strongly believe that India can benefit from Australia's expertise in agriculture and food processing, of course, mining and everything related to it, because India's mining potential has not even been touched, to be very frank. Of course, education and Australia as a very much in demand destination when things become better would always remain. I do see a strong collaboration opportunity in healthcare, biotechnology. India has really responded very well to this pandemic, and in Australia is extremely well placed to contribute to India's resurgence through digital clinical trials, vaccine development. Sport would always remain a mutual love. So there is already a lot of engagement through IPL and other sports, but more importantly, science and innovation. I probably think this is one of the key areas, and Australia-India Strategic Fund, Research Fund is the right way to look at it. So I always believe that if you offer something when there is a need, then there will always be a buyer to buy it. And India has got lots of needs. Australia has got lots to offer. So some of these sectors, which are Australia's strengths, are definitely what we should be tapping on.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, really, really great insight there, Gitesh, because I think, as you say, those strengths and needs are really good fits. And I think some of my observations in different markets, even interviewing different companies around the world on this show, is that India is one of those markets that seems to be a real partnership market versus just a buyer-seller. So you really need to build a relationship, build a partnership, and then work collaboratively to, as you say, R&D, maybe distribution, value adds or finished product completion at the end there as well. So there's some great partnership opportunities. So it's very different to some other markets where you're just shipping product in and selling it through another supply chain.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Gitesh, I mean, there's so much to talk about, and I'd love to get you back on the show on a regular basis. So to wrap up today's interview, I know you can't mention specific names probably, but I'd love to hear about a case study that you've done with TRQ into the Indian market, and something to inspire and share to our viewers and say, look, this is a real success story that you should also consider as part of your export strategy.
No, thank you, Lawrence. And I'm sure the two companies I would like to mention have participated with us in the past to share their success story to India. So one of them is a world leader in food processing, especially snack foods. They came to India with their technology from Queensland because one of the largest players in the world, PepsiCo, invited them. And then when they became present in the market, they went after Indian snacks and see how they could improvise and customize their own machine lines to deliver those outcomes. And guess what? They became the largest influencer of processed foods in the country. In fact, 70% of India's snack market is now influenced by a Queensland technology. And they have gone on to customize even more newer product lines, including Indian snacks that was unheard of and unthinkable. So that's a beautiful example of how a company from Australia came to the market, learned what it needs, modified its offering, and is now benefiting with the in-country presence and almost $50 million turnover. The second one is a very recent, totally on the other end of contrasting paradigm. It's a world-leading hologram technology from Brisbane again. And they came second in the world's largest technology competition. And they offer their technology to defense, airports, museums, food, and city monitoring. And they came to India and they saw the value proposition it offers, and they put their largest experience center outside of Australia in India, in Bangalore. And they are already being solicited by everyone from spiritual ashrams to governments, to airports, to infrastructural players, because they are trying to show an experience of the world in a very different way using their globally recognized hologram technology. So two different sectors, food and an absolutely digital world, but both companies have chosen to commit their approach to India, and they are here for the long run. And one is already benefiting because they've been here for 20 years. The other one is already looking at a long run.
Fantastic. And I love the way that you've given two, as you say, opposing spectrum companies, because it does show the breadth of opportunity. And you mentioned some of those other sectors before, Gitesh, about bioscience and medical and mining and mets. And as you say, the principles are all the same. It's a sense of building the relationships, identifying the need, and then adapting what they can offer to suit the market, which I really love the way you've emphasised that. And it does show that the product adaptation or service adaptation to suit the specific customer or market needs of India is what's going to really give you that long-term success once you've committed to the market. So the words you're using are really, really great, and I'm sure all the viewers watching this episode will take away thinking, yes, I can actually succeed in India. I do need to do some homework. I do need to partner with the right people. And yes, I might have to tweak some things here and there and invest the time to really get to know what needs to be adapted with their product or service.
Absolutely, Lawrence. It's a marriage and you need to woo the girl.
That's it. I love that analogy. Great. Thanks so much, Gitesh. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. As I said earlier, I'd love to keep in touch and keep in contact, because obviously there's so many things happening, and the more and more we get back to some sort of normality, there's going to be more and more travel to and from India. So we look forward to keeping in touch and staying abreast of all the fantastic work you're doing up there.
Thank you. Thank you, Lawrence. We're looking forward to doing the best we can for Queensland.
Congratulations again. Thanks, Gitesh. Take care. We'll speak again soon.
Good luck. Take care.
There you've heard from Gitesh Agarwal, all the way in Bangalore, who's the Trade Commissioner for India in the Trade Investment Queensland. So as you've heard, there's so much opportunity in India, regardless of the fact that you can't travel right now. You've still got experts such as Gitesh on the ground who are happy to help Queensland companies to really, now's the time actually to prepare yourself and get it out there. And then once you can travel again, go there and build upon those opportunities and pipeline. So stick around after the break. We're going to be joined by Zoran Kostadinoski, our good friend from IFCBAA or IFCBAA, about the latest updates on ports, international trade, and some of the congestion issues we're facing around Australia as well. We'll catch up with you very soon.
With over 20 years of combined recruitment experience, Bastion is your trusted advisor for sourcing leaders. Technical experts in supply chain recruitment, Bastion uses a proven customer-focused delivery. Speak to a consultant today for your recruitment needs. Bastion, experts in sourcing leaders that deliver change.
Welcome back, everyone. You're watching another episode of Trade Australia. Now joining me is our regular border security and overall trade expert, Zoran Kostadinoski from IFCBAA. Hi, Zoran. Thanks for joining me again.
Hi, Lawrence, and it's a pleasure to be on your show.
Great. Zoran, always good to chat, and it's the first time we're having you on now for 2021. So much to talk about. It's been obviously a crazy year, 2020, but how about just give us a quick update on what the challenges are so far in Australian ports and border security issues. And I also understand there's some biosecurity stuff that we need to keep abreast of as well. So what would you like to tell the viewers, and how are we all tracking right now in the first quarter?
Thanks, Lawrence. Look, it has been a busy start of the year. The pandemic has created a very interesting supply and demand scenario here, where we're finding that the demand is greater. The trade volumes are increasing, the e-commerce is increasing, the need for services and speed at the border and facilitation has never been greater, which what it's done, it's stretching some of the regulatory agencies, in particular probably more the Department of Agriculture and Water Resources, because the biosecurity systems are pretty strict. Some of the systems and resourcing are a lot manual, and we have done a lot of lobbying through to the Minister, the Secretary and the First Assistant Secretary of Operations, looking for ways where we can improve the biosecurity system, because the trade is impacting, the border clearances are a lot longer, and a lot of the importers are paying extra cost due to the staging, storing, cost of waiting for inspections and assessment of documentation and treatment. So it is not easy at the moment, but there's been a lot of commitment from the Minister down to the association and other big bodies that they're willing to work with us to provide some short-term and long-term solution. They value international trade. They realise that the imports pathway has to improve, but at the same time, they cannot compromise biosecurity, which we agree. We all got to protect Australia, but we are looking for better facilitation and systems and resources in that imports program. So that was very pleasing to hear from the Minister, and we will continue to work in that space. The port supply chain, there was a lot of congestion still, as we discussed at the last show. A lot of empty containers are not repositioned due to the complexity in the whole supply chain. Shipping lines and ships that fall in Asia, a lot of shortage of equipment in Asia for importers to bring their cargo. And in the aviation space, as you can appreciate, we don't have passengers coming in, therefore the capacity is reduced, the freight rates are going high, and the cost of doing international trade business is increasing, unfortunately, but it is the way it is at the moment. And if traders want their goods, unfortunately, you've got to pay a lot more to get your product into the country. Yeah, so it's been a very, very challenging start to 2021. And COVID has created more work, more trade, more demand, more movement. So everyone I speak to that's involved in international trade, they will tell you they are very, very busy trying to get the cargo to the customers.
Yeah, look, I think it's a lot on everyone's plate, Zoran. I know that both you personally and the organisation IFCBAA do a great job in trying to, as you say, talk to the Minister, represent the industry, and really try and support importers and exporters with trying to navigate their way through this situation, because it is challenging. It's a lot more expensive than it used to be. International trade was difficult at the best of times, but now it's gone up a whole range of notches now in complexity. And all the bodies, government bodies, peak bodies such as yourselves, importers, exporters, are all trying to do their best to get through it and streamline things again, because the costs have gone through the roof. Every importer and exporter I speak to are just reworking the whole supply chain model, reworking their costs, because what was locked in stone 12, 18 months ago is totally all over the shop right now. So, there's so many things that are impacting costs, and obviously COVID has created a whole range of things. What about some of the other, we touched on congestion, but obviously supply chain costs are really blowing out exponentially. What other tips and advice would you give to importers and exporters around how to get the best out of their dollar when it comes to trade and supply chain?
Yeah, look, part of the process is to review the supply chain, because the supply chains have changed. But the way you move cargo has changed. What people normally relied on air freight would have to change to a sea freight model. So all of those need remodeling. Two is partnering with service providers, because at the end of the day, you've got to work together to make sure that you review your contracts, your contract negotiation where there's high demand for freight. They are useless at times, because regardless of how big you are, the shipping lines or the airlines will only charge what they have to recover the cost. So you've got to work through that concept. You've got to work with people that can deliver your cargo, because at the end of the day, you're competing against supply chain efficiency. Cost is almost irrelevant at the end of the day, because the costs are going to be there. Whether you like to bring your products, you've got to cost it into the cost of goods. But working together, getting reliability and getting delivery is what's very important for the trade community. And that should be their focus. Work together rather against each other. It's the only way, every part of the supply chain has to work in order to get your products to the market. Without the product to the market, then cost becomes really not an important factor.
Yeah, you're right. Great advice, Zoran, because you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, you can have the cheapest product, but if it takes forever to get there and the customer by that stage has bought something else, then it defeats the whole purpose. So, sound advice. I think it is a collaborative approach, working between all the departments, all the industry, to really help each other to, as you say, get back to some efficiency. I think that we've talked about this whole situation for Q1, and we're still in February, but what do you see may pan out of the rest of 2021? Obviously, touch wood, nothing else gets out of control from a COVID perspective, but as a recovery, what are your thoughts? What do you think may happen throughout the year?
The signs are here. The volumes are increasing. The demands are greater. We're finding that the port volumes are greater than what they were same time this year. Even with aviation, whatever comes through, you look at the demand now for the health products, the vaccination and all that. So the supply chains are already very congested. So a lot of stuff is coming into the country due to low manufacturing here in Australia. So trade is booming. We just need the supply chains, the regulators, everyone involved in the supply chain to stick together and make sure that supply chain works efficiently, rather than blaming. And why I say that our members, the licensed customs brokers and forwarders, are facilitating trade. They don't always have control over all of those regulatory issues and stuff, but often are the first to be blamed. So message I'm sending is you've got to work with these service providers to achieve what your final outcome is, and that's delivery, getting products to market.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, being an ex-freight forwarder myself, I know firsthand how frustrated customers are and how they can get with you as a freight forwarder or a broker when you can't get your cargo or things are costing more. So, it is really hard to explain to them sometimes the intricacies of the port, the congestion, the biosecurity delays, and they, at the end of the day, they just want their goods. So it is a challenge for everyone to work together to empathise with what's really going on in the supply chain. But I do think, hopefully, once things start to stabilise, the global vaccine looks like it's rolling out, that should free up a bit more capacity. Maybe there's even talk recently around some overseas markets open up with air travel potentially second half of the year as well. So that may give us some greater capacity. Fingers crossed that starts to improve and increase over the coming months as well. I know that, Zoran, you mentioned about collaboration. Importantly as well, apart from all the COVID stuff, there has been a whole raft of new free trade agreements and economic partnership deals. There's a whole range of stuff going on with UK, EU. We've had the whole range of stuff going on with the economic partnership as well. So how the brokers themselves have to stay up to date with this as well, and they really need to keep up to date with all the latest changes with all the laws. What do you guys, I know that IFCBAA are doing a whole range of programs. What can you tell us about that? I know you've just recently had some conferences in Melbourne and Sydney. So tell us a bit about how you're supporting those providers with the brokers and forwarders.
Certainly, the world is getting smaller. Trade is, Australia's got so much opportunities with free trade agreements. So when you take it, the complexity of import and exports, the getting goods to market, we've got a greater market to sell. Our members, both in the inbound and export, have play a facilitation role, classification of goods and other. All that requires up-to-date regulatory understanding, training, and our losses brokers also have to undertake CPD training. If I give you a simple explanation that licensed customs brokers have greater obligations and licensing conditions on them, greater than any lawyer and accountant. It's almost, people don't understand that. Yeah. And, anything goes wrong in the supply chain, they're the first one to point the finger because there is easy touch point as regulation. So we do a lot of the CPD training, we do regional forums across the country, we do online delivery, and to further upskill our industry sector as an association, we have an RTO, International Trade Logistics College. We do the Diploma International Freight Forwarding, and we do the Diploma of Customs Broking, which is prerequisite for getting a customs broker license. So we do our part as a not-for-profit industry association to raise that awareness, increase the training, and help the future, the young generation that comes into the sector. What's important as we're losing a lot of experience to make sure that new people coming into the industry sector have to operate. The skills that people need today, they'll be outdated. New skills with new technologies, some of the jobs that are needed, will be created very, very soon. Yeah. And you'll be in that technology space, regulation, and all of those things that might come our way.
Yeah, no, great work that you guys do, and you picked up on a really good point there, Zoran, where one great thing that's come out of COVID, if there are any, is that it has really highlighted the importance of supply chain and the importance of global trade, market diversification. So many young people who look into different career paths are now taking notice of supply chain, forwarding, brokerage. So hopefully, with this increased exposure and awareness, that the sector can attract some really great new talent and really lead the way into the future with those new innovations, new technologies to showcase what the industry can do and how we can take it forward in an efficient, sustainable way and make sure everyone benefits.
Oh, certainly, because I simply say that it's a very exciting industry to be in because, without this industry, everything stops. Yeah. Your kids won't get the products that they need. Yeah. So it's very, very simple. As the world gets smaller, the demands increase. So I think more and more this sector plays a vital role in helping those consumers get their products whenever
absolutely.
They want it.
Absolutely. No, always a pleasure to talk to you, Zoran. Really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're really busy with everything going on with deal with the brokers and the forwarders and what you're doing with the CPDs and other initiatives as well. So appreciate that. Appreciate sharing your insights with the importers and exporters and the viewers of the show. So, let's keep in touch. I'll get in contact with you again probably in a couple of weeks with an update again on biosecurity and some of the evolutions as this continues to change over the coming months. So look forward to staying in touch. Stay safe and look forward to speaking again soon.
Thank you, Lawrence. Pleasure being on your show.
Great. Always a pleasure. Thanks, Zoran. Take care.
Goodbye.
So there you have it. You just heard from Zoran Kostadinoski about all the latest port issues, biosecurity issues, and why it's so important to stay up to date. Prior to that, you heard from Gitesh, who's with the Trade Commissioner for India for Trade Investment Queensland. They're doing amazing work getting Queensland companies into that massive market. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Thanks so much for joining us on another episode of Trade Australia. Look forward to seeing you again next week. Cheers.
With over 20 years of combined recruitment experience, Bastion is your trusted advisor for sourcing leaders. Technical experts in supply chain recruitment, Bastion uses a proven customer-focused delivery. Speak to a consultant today for your recruitment needs. Bastion, experts in sourcing leaders that deliver change.